Hi there YouTube, this is the Magnus, bringing you another Total War Warhammer online ladder battle. Now today I opted to play as the Empire. My opponent chose the Greenskins. I went with 3 great swords, 4 spearmen, 2 crossbowmen, 2 Demigryph knights, 1 amber wizard on his flying mount, 1 Empire captain on his flying mount, and the general of the Empire on a flying mount as well. And I arranged it so I've got the archers in the back. Now you're going to notice I don't draw my archers out in a long line, which is not conventional, I would say. The reason why I do that is it seems that much more quickly they are able to change targets because they don't have to do that weird shuffle they do when they're spread out in a line. So you may want to try this. I also don't line them up because a lot of times somebody can attack one and they end up attacking both. I put my great swords in the middle, and then on the outside I have my spearmen, and I pushed my whole army back a bit so I could forward deploy my flying units. I also hid the Demigryph knights. Now let's take a look at my opponent's army, the Greenskins. Right away you'll notice he goes with 2 giants, which are very powerful units, especially if used correctly. He also has 3 units of black orcs, another very powerful unit. He's got the orc boys, and then he has 2 of the goblin big bosses. He has 1 night goblin shaman. He has Grimgor Inronhide, a nasty fellow, and he has orc boar boy biggins. Wow, that is always hard to say, no matter how many times I do. Initially, obviously I have flying, so I'm going to do some harass. But specifically, this is going to be about the Amber Wizard, and I believe the Amber Wizard is the most powerful unit in the game. Now, I know that's a pretty big statement, and bold claims require bold proof, but let's watch what this guy can do. So, I start off with a Flock of Doom that's going to affect a total of 6 units, 3 which it's going to punish heavily, the Orc Boys, the Black Orcs, and these Archers who apparently resisted it, or it may have not worked because of vision. I'm not sure what the case was there. But so I've already softened up 2 of his infantry units, and I'm flying around getting some harassment in, attacking anything that's kind of left marginal here. So his goblin big boss got a little bit out in front of everybody, so we're going to make him pay for that, and then as soon as he tries to counter, we're going to pull out. And I'm going to continue this process until he engages my line, because there's really no advantage to me engaging when I can fly in and pick stuff off, and I can continue to cast Flock of Doom. And you're going to see the Amber Wizard on this flying mount. The 2 things that make me really like him is the flying mount itself is quite tough. It can, it's very effective in melee combat. And the Flock of Doom, I believe, is the most powerful spell in the game. To the point where I almost never summon a Pharaoh Manticore because I can simply cast 2 Flock of Doom instead. So here's another one going down, and it's going to affect a couple of his units. It looks like these archers, the orc boys, and a little bit of damage to the giant. Now this spell is very weak against single entity targets. You don't want to go after those, but it's very powerful against regular units. So he's taking a lot of health loss here, and a lot of health loss here, and a couple of deaths. So we're just going to keep flying around, putting on the harass, and casting this until he makes me stop. I could advance, sure, but what benefit is there to me while I can still hurt him and he can do very little damage to me at this point? He can hurt these units with his archers, retaliating when I dive down, and he can also cast spells, which he's going to right here. There's a Vindictive Glare. I tried to dodge it, but that thing was spot on. But the damage is minimal. For that amount of mana, whatever, or I should say Winds of Magic, just not real valuable. And what do? Again, I put down the Flock of Doom. So these guys get weakened. These Black Orcs take it. Right, a little bit to the giant and the little goblin big boss. But, take a look at his units. Already hurt. Right? Severely hurt. Pretty hurt. That guy's beat up from me diving in on him. So I'm getting an advantage before anything begins. So he moves up these orc boar boy biggins, so I decide I'm going to start to try to sweep around behind him to see if there's some opportunities. And here in a bit, once I feel he's going to be looking over here for sure, I'm going to sneak out my Demigryphs and try to get a naked charge on these Orc Boy Biggins, thinking if he's not paying attention he won't be able to countercharge, and that could be a good situation for me. So we're going to kind of test, in a lot of ways I'm testing the attention of my opponent to see if, where he's looking, what he's doing, and how quickly he can respond to new threats. Now I can't see these. As you can see, there's the hidden icon, so he does move archers up to support, which is quite smart. And you're going to see that my charge attempt here goes forward. Off go the Demigryph Knights, and he pulls back. So he did very well there. I'm going to pull back. No sense exposing myself to that archer fire there. In the meantime, I dove into the back of one of his black orcs that was a little bit behind. He's going to get some damage in on the Amber Wizard, but as you can see, the black orcs get the worst of it there. So he's still not engaging, so I'm going to keep playing the flying game and the Flock of Doom game. Pretty soon here he's going to realize that hiding in these trees and stuff is fine, but it's not a long-term solution. His archers start to put down fire on one of my spearmen, and I'm busy working with my flyers, so it takes me a little while to notice it because I'm over here trashing his flank, and then I'm going to notice it and deploy my archers down to so my crossbowmen can counter fire. So still playing the flying game here, casting Flock of Doom, going in for an attack, ducking out. See the Flock of Doom here, his orc boys are, they haven't swung their swords or their choppas, and they're already pretty darn beat up. I mean, look at that. What do they have? Like 1/4 of their health remaining? That's just not a good situation. So he's going to bring in the giants, and I understand this because I don't have, besides the crossmen, I don't have strong counters to this, or at least that he's aware of. He knows this Demigryph's here, but he realizes he has it pinned down by this huge mass. He doesn't know I have one hidden up here, and I'm going to hold on to that as long as I can. So in come the giants, and they're gonna do good work against these greatswords for sure. But I'm gonna quickly have the crossbowmen focus on it, and certainly missile units are the bane of the giant. So here he gets a little charge with his Goblin Big Boss, but I am gonna just in time get a counter charge on these Orc Boy Biggins, and the spear that retreated from the arrows is going to support. It's not a lot, but it's enough to turn it because they are anti-large, and it's going to help this thing go my way. And as you can see, his Boar Boy Biggins have had enough, and he's going to be stuck with just the Goblin Big Boss on that flank. Elsewhere, he's crashing into my lines. I'm counter-charging every chance I get. I brought these in to hit the Giant for a while, then I pulled the Demigryph Knights back. I dive into his back to go after his Night Goblin Shaman here, and then I'm going to go in after his Giant, try to put some extra damage on him. And I bring in my flank since there's nothing out here threatening me. There's no reason for me to hold those guys in reserve. They're much more useful to me on the field. The Black Orcs are fighting Spearmen. Obviously that's going to be good for them. Over here, my Demigryphs are getting pelted with his arrows. I tried a little too hard to kill that Goblin Big Boss. It really wasn't that important. It wasn't worth the investment I made. But we all make mistakes, and I'm certainly among one who does. So you're going to see more Flock of Doom coming down on his Black Orcs and his little Night Goblin Archers here. They've had enough. They're going to flee. So have my Spearmen, so they're going to pull out. And you see his Goblin Big Boss is really the only thing remaining from this side. And he's smartly going to go after my crossbowmen. I'm still putting down fire on the Giant every chance I get. One of them went down. He was over here, I think. Yeah, there's his body. There he is. It's pretty easy to find corpse. So we continue to slog it out. Over here I have him strongly outnumbered. He's going to put down Itchy Nuisance, which is certainly going to help his guys out because it's going to severely reduce the amount of damage that I do in this pretty darn large area. Enough to turn the tide? We'll see. My Amber Wizard's going to get scared off by the Black Orcs, but at this point, and then he gets missiled down. But at this point, I'd already used up the vast majority of his Winds of Magic, so I don't care as much. If that would have happened early in the battle, that would have been a tragedy. But at this point, he'd already done a lot of work on them. So as you can see, I have a lot more men on the field. Here's his Night Goblin Shaman, who just got that big kill for him, so he's probably feeling pretty good about himself. How you feeling, buddy? Any comments from people? No? All right. Not much of a talker. So the battle's continuing. My great swords here are failing in the center. Grimgor is very good when he's got black orcs with him. That's just a combination made in hell. They really can put down some damage. But in the meantime, I've gotten rid of this goblin big boss and this black orc, and I'm charging in to make sure these guys don't come back either. So I win on the right. On the left, I'm winning. It's taking a long time for these guys to whittle down these black orcs, but it is happening. In the center, he's doing well, but I brought down those great swords, and they're going to hold off. And at the same time, I'm going to bring in the General of the Empire to put an extra beat down on Grimgor and start working on him. It's kind of unusual that I saved him for last, but Grimgor is very tough, and those giants were a bigger threat to me in general, and these guys had to die. So now I'm finally getting around to Grimgor, and by the time I do, he's pretty much here on his own. He doesn't want any more of that as he sees the whole horde headed towards him, and it's going to be a Pyrrhic victory. And we definitely took losses. So let's take a look at what the tail of the tape has to say. My spearmen did okay. Kill-wise, not that impressive, but they certainly held the line for a very long time, and that's why I double chevroned them with my extra money, so I get that staying power. The greatswords did well, especially considering most of them got stuck with giant duty. Crossbowmen did fine, again a lot of time focused on the giants and the demigryphs, but you're going to notice it's not a lot of kills. Well, two reasons. One, my opponent only brought 501 guys, and all for the most part very expensive units. He's got 2 giants and 3 heroes and 1 lord, so most of his army is single unit entities. But the other reason is, if this, instead of showing kills, showed you the amount of health damage done, the Amber Wizard would be so far above everybody else. He'd be way up here, you know, if we were looking like a graph or something. Everybody else would be between here and here. It's just crazy the amount of damage you can do with them. Now, of course, you have access to that lore of magic as the Beastmen, but you can't get it in a flying variant. Why does that matter? Well, it actually matters a lot, because number one, it allows you to move around and be able to cast the spell wherever you want, right? You can very quickly get to where you want to cast it, get within range, and get it done. And it also provides a lot of protection for your caster, because at any time I could have chose to back him off, right? If he took too much damage early on while I still had access to lots of winds of magic, I could have just pulled him off to a corner of the forest, or just well behind my line where he's not going to get touched, and just use him to cast spells. And there's really nothing you can do about it. If you don't have flying in your missile units, you know, how are you going to catch him? You're not. It's just not going to happen. So it is good with the Beastmen. Flock of Doom is a great spell. It's unbelievable. Is it as good as Devolve was before the nerf? No, but it's still very powerful, and having that flying element just makes it ever so much easier to use and get full value from. As far as my opponent's army, the Black Orcs did what Black Orcs do, which is murder people. So they did quite well for him. I think the Night Goblin Archers are a great choice here, because the poisoning effect is certainly helpful in trying to nail down flyers and keep them on the ground. And most of the time when you face the Empire, you're going to see flyers. The Giants did well, but nowhere near what they need to do for their cost. And that's largely because the crossbowmen were able to focus fire them down. Grimgor, not a lot of kills. That's kind of disappointing. Obviously, his cavalry didn't do too well. These guys weren't very effective. He definitely got good use out of his Night Goblin Shaman. So overall, definitely a good game to my opponent. And it was a fun battle, so I enjoyed that. I've been requested to show my